Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Fuel for Success. This is episode 181 on this Thursday morning. Good to see everybody here with us today. Today is Thursday, and just like every Thursday, we're going to be talking about business development, entrepreneurship. This morning, we're going to be talking a little bit about some lessons we've learned doing startups and some startup advice, that sort of thing. And man, I'm looking forward to it. Thursday's, of course, one of our favorite days because every day is our favorite day. I want to remind everybody that's on live. First of all, thanks for joining us live. It means a lot to us. It's humbling that any person would take their time and hang out with us here. And I love the interaction, all the chat. By all means, feel free to ask questions. Type them in the chat box over there. Click down below to add them in. Send them to me. Email mike@mattmaddox.com or text them in at 727-341-5599. Good morning, Mr. Maddox.
Good morning, my friend. Good morning to everybody out there. You know, Mike, today, obviously, everybody knows by now that today is the 13th anniversary of 9/11, and we're sending out a lot of prayers today for the families of those that were affected in that tragedy. And I mean that. Like, when I say I pray for them, I really do, because no matter what, we may say never forget, and we don't. But to the people that actually had family members in those towers or in those planes, those are the ones that really need the prayer today, because they're the ones that really never forget. You know, some people may not think of 9/11 until they see something on Instagram or Twitter on September 11th, but for some people, they think about it every day of their life because they lost children, they lost husbands and wives. They lost family members, brothers and sisters, fiancés. It really was a tragedy. So a lot of prayers going out for those sweet, beautiful people today. And also for the people that were involved in the U.S. military during that time, going to war, that lost their lives as well, and the families there as well that were affected, Mike. I mean, this really impacted our entire world, even to this very day.
True. You're right. Massive impact, and I concur 100%.
So anyways, looking forward to our show today. This is one of our favorite shows, talking about business and entrepreneurship. Good to see our live audience here today. We're really grateful for those that are able to. We understand people are working, so some people are not always able to watch live. But a lot of you watch on the archives, so we say thank you. A lot of you shared the link to this show on your social media, and we say thank you for that. We want you to share it. We want you to, if a show ever helps you, here's what we want you to do. Take the link, copy it, and put it on your Twitter or Facebook, and write a little something about it. Like, wow, today's show really helped me today, really impacted me. You guys need to watch this, you know. Because ultimately, we're doing this for people. We want to help people. We want to motivate people, right, encourage people, and help people out.
Yeah. Hey, Britton's asking a question. This is a technical question, and one of the issues with the archive chat is that the archives are now going to YouTube because of some changes that Spreecast made. Even though they when they launched the platform, they said the free version will always be free, and then they sort of changed it up on us about 6 months later. And we're actually looking for another option, potentially building a new option. But for today, the archive chat isn't with the archive videos, and also the pre-roll ads that you may see, prior to the show. We have no control over those, and we also don't get any revenue from those. So that's just the situation right now, and there's a piece of business advice for you. If you're going to do a startup and you're going to tell your users that a certain version of the system is going to be free forever, make sure that it's free forever, and don't sort of pull the rug out from under your users halfway down the road, which is what Spreecast did. And not bashing on them, just saying for us it was less than perfect, and so now we're looking for another solution. But for today, we have to deal with the middle ground. So hope that helps, and apologize for any inconvenience, Britton.
And know also that the ads, we have nothing to do with at all. We don't approve them. We don't get any revenue from them. That's just totally 100% Spreecast. So anyways, Mike,
Yeah.
One of my favorite business people to study is Mark Cuban. I love his passion. I love the way he thinks. Of course, you're never going to agree with everybody in life. You know what I'm learning, Mike? To me, what's sad is the amount of mentoring and lessons we could be learning from others. We are so quick to write off people if we don't like something about them. In reality, Mike, I've never met not one human being that I saw eye to eye with or that I agreed with on everything. It's like Donald Trump, okay? Donald Trump has some massive haters, right? People think he's arrogant. People think he's rude. People think he's self-absorbed. But I have the ability to look past all of that and get the gold that he can share. Some people say, what's he know about business? His dad gave him all that money. Do you know how many other thousands of 18-year-olds got inheritances and money and never did what Donald Trump did with it? So it's
True.
I don't have that kind of thinking. Like, I'm able to look past people's whatever to learn from them, right? Like, I may not even, like my personal opinion, and then I'm not giving it right now. I'm just telling you, I may not like Obama, right? But I would read a book about him and how he learned how to speak so incredibly well. I would have the ability to look past somebody I don't like. But I do like Mark Cuban, but I don't agree with some things that he does, right? But I still like him. And I still think he's an unbelievable businessman. So I've read everything I can read about him. I've watched every interview there is to watch because I'm intrigued by his energy and his passion, right? So there's just a little life lesson for all of you out there, not to write off people just because you don't like something about them, to really realize that there's some things about their life that you can learn from. And this is why I say, always be learning, right? So Mark Cuban did this deal, and it was called 12 Pieces of Advice for Startups. I'm not going to go through all 12, but I want to pick a few of them out. I want us to talk about them a little bit, the number one piece of advice that he said is never start a business unless it's an obsession. And I love that. I love it because I've met people that start businesses because they think it's going to make money, but they're really not obsessed with the product or the business or the idea. They're really not. Like they're starting it because, they want to golf in the afternoons and they want to, they think it's going to make them millions, but they're not obsessed with the business, right? To me, and of course, according to Mark Cuban, it's a mistake. The second piece of advice he had that I love, and we're going to stop here and chat about this for a minute before we go on. What we'll do, Mike, is we'll share a few of the tips that he gave, and then you and I will kind of hash them out and talk about it, all right? But I love what he said. His second piece of advice is, if you have an exit strategy, it's not an obsession. So I love this because how many people do we know that start businesses that have exit strategies, that have plan Bs? According to Mark Cuban, you don't ever even think about a plan B. And according to what I believe in, like Mike and I are in the middle of an extreme startup right now. We were talking to some investors and somebody asked what happens if your guys' financial projections, what happens if it doesn't work? What happens if you fail? And I really believe that a person's response to that pretty much determines whether or not they're really going to succeed. And I know that our feeling was, well, first of all, we don't even think like that because it's not even possible for this to fail. Literally isn't even possible. Okay, that's number one. Number two, we would sleep in our car. This is how much we believe in it. I'm not kidding. I believe in what Mike and I are doing at this present moment right now, that if it came down to survival, just to make it work, I would sell everything I have and sleep in my car. Like when you get to that point on a business startup, you're pretty much ready to really play the game, my friends, in my opinion. So Mike, what's your take on what Mark said about don't start something unless it's an obsession? And if you have an exit strategy, it's not an obsession. What's your thoughts on that, man?
Two things. I'm going to start out agreeing and then I'm going to disagree slightly. But the
Our show,
when,
so
when
if you want to disagree, you have that right.
so I agree 100% with unless it's an obsession, don't bother. And here's my take on why. I think that, and having been involved in various startups and tech startups and different things, do not get involved in starting a business if your goal is to work 8 hours a day. Okay, if you want to work 8 hours a day and then live like the other 16 hours of your life, startup's not for you. Okay, go work for somebody else. Go make someone else rich. Okay, that's just being real. You're not gonna be successful starting a business working 8 hours a day. Probably not even 10 hours a day. So
Really?
you're not gonna punch in and punch out and build a business. It's not gonna happen. So I agree 100% with that. Just because, and here's the deal. It's if you're not obsessed with something, you can be excited about something, and then 30 days down the road, you like lose that energy and just be like, man, this is um,
Then you're not obsessed.
almost no one. You're not obsessed, and almost no one is going to build a successful business. Actually, no one's going to build a successful business in 30 to 60 days. You got to be like still obsessed. You got to still be not wanting to work the 8-hour day 6 months from now when you're involved in the nitty gritty details of making and executing that business, developing strategies, finding things, learning. You got to be focused on that. There's so much that goes into it. There's a learning process, and there's an execution process, and there's the daily grind of running it. Okay. And if you're not, committed, that grind is going to wear you down. You're not going to want to do it. You're going to want to be, punching in, punching out. If you have that mentality, it's not going to work. As far as not having an exit strategy, I'm not 100% on board with that particular concept, and here's why. I think that it's good to have a plan, okay? And I think it's good to know that there's a possibility of an exit strategy simply from there's depending on the nature of the business, okay? And in a tech startup sort of a business, you can definitely be obsessed and build a successful business and have an exit strategy. And I think that that's okay.
So what you're saying is you disagree with a billionaire. That's what you're saying now.
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much. Well, here's the thing is that there's also billionaires that always say in a tech startup have an exit strategy. So, it's a subjective thing. So I'm not saying, but what I maybe it's the way that he's saying it. Okay, I would say this: do not get involved in a startup and have your end goal be the exit strategy.
That's good.
I don't think that. Okay, so maybe that's more what he's saying, and I just misinterpreted the way that it came across when you relate it, because that means that you're looking for the payoff, and if you're looking for the payoff, look, money never motivates long term.
No,
never.
That's actually good stuff, Mike. So the third piece of advice that he gave, or the third tip, was hire people that you love. No. Hire people that you know that will love working for your company. If someone's looking, and I think a lot of this is in the interview process, but if someone's just looking for a job, right? Or you want someone that is wanting to work for you because they see the vision, they believe in the product, they believe in what they're doing, they see purpose in it, and they love it, right? So that's honestly, we've talked a lot about hiring in this show, so we won't go deep into that. But one of the things I know you and I both believe in is tip number 4. And he says sales will cure all. He says know exactly how your company will make money and how you will make your sales. Which, as you and I both know from experience, at the end of the day, sales is the life and death of a business. If there's no sales, there's no money. And if there's no money, you're in trouble, right? So I think a lot of startups, while they're starting up, they don't think enough about sales process, or whether we call it, want to talk about marketing. What's your twist on that, Mike?
Well, and what's interesting about that is in today's economy and in today's world of tech startups, it gets a little bit fuzzy, right? because you look at companies like Twitter, right? And Twitter was funded by venture capital for 5 or 6 years before they ever made a dime. And in fact, you know, up until about 4 years ago, even Twitter didn't know how they were going to make money. Now they're a success story, sort of despite the rules, okay? But there's no way I would go into a business venture and secure venture capital or anything without a plan to generate revenue, without a plan to make sales. Because for every Twitter that's out there that started up with this, hey, we're just going to help people and build this thing and we'll figure out a way to monetize later. For every success like Twitter, there's 1,000 failures, okay? Because you have to, there's this, just the all of the pieces that came together for Twitter to be successful. It's very difficult to make that happen. And plus, I mean, they were able to secure, hundreds of millions of dollars in venture capital. So it's not an easy thing to do. But as I said, for every one of those, there's 1,000 that there's 1,000 that went by the wayside that you've never heard of or you'll never see again. And I try to stay on top of a lot of the tech startups and a lot of the new things that are going on, and so I subscribe to all these free services and stuff just to kind of check them out, figure out what they're doing, and all those sort of things. And at least once a week, I get an email from a service that is no longer supported. Right? Hey, thanks for your business. We're going to be closing down our servers. Blah blah blah. Happens all the time.
Happens
all the time.
Happens in a lot of small businesses, and this kind of leads me to the next tip that he gave, and I love this one. I laughed at it, actually. He said, espresso machine. Are you kidding me? Coffee is for closer. Of course, Mike, you're a big coffee lover, but I know what he's getting at when he said this.
Right.
He said there's 24 hours in a day, and if people love what they do, they will find ways to use as much of that time as possible. And I know, Mike, and I personally believe this and live this. The fact that when you're an entrepreneur, it's not like you work from 2 to 9 or from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. When you're an entrepreneur, you work as much as you can in that 24-hour day. You know what you do? You calculate, okay, how much sleep can I get without killing myself? Can I live the next day off 4 hours of sleep? No joke. Like you work at it wee hours in the night, you wake up, you work at it in the afternoon when you want to be doing something else, and seriously, like you work through meals, like you get so into it that you seriously forget to eat. And I'm not even talking about like, no, I'll eat later. I'm talking about like your mind doesn't even, you're so like engrossed in the build, in the start, in the kick, in the grind that you forget to eat. And it seriously can happen to where you can get into a 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night situation. You push away from the desk for a minute. You're like, wow, whoa, it's 11 o'clock. I forgot to eat. And that is how you know that A, you're following your passion, and B, you're doing what you love, and C, you're in true startup mode. Because most people that are in startup mode, Mark Cuban, speaking of the man that we're talking to, went over 5 years without even taking a vacation, without even taking a day off. So when we say, of course, people say, well, that's extreme. He should have balance. Well, that's like what I'm saying. Don't take advice from someone that's broke. You know what I'm saying? The man's not broke. So we can say he should have balance all he wants, but, then he can come back and say, well, you should have money. I may not have balance, but at least I got money, right? So it's a good way to look at it, in my opinion. What's your twist on this, Mike? Of course, I know you're a believer in, and you'd already talked about, like, look, if you want to work 8 hours a day, stay with your job. Do not start a business because you can't succeed. You just can't. Why don't you think you can seed off an 8-hour day? Because, there's that 4-hour work week philosophy, and there's these people that say, less is more. And, what's your twist on why Mark Cuban said these words? There's 24 hours a day. And if you love what you do, you'll find a way to use as much of it as possible. What's your twist on that?
Listen, I think it's less about how many hours you work and it's more about the attitude, okay? If you go into a startup business thinking you're going to be able to work 8 hours a day, hey, listen, maybe 18 months down the road you can work 8 hours a day. And maybe it'll just work out to where, hey, you know what, I've got this, I've set it up where there's automated processes and things that happen, whatever, and I'm in the office 8 hours a day. But I'll guarantee if you're a business owner, you're probably working more than that because, we're never too far away from our business when we've got a smartphone. But, hey, maybe it'll end up that way. But if you're going in with that attitude, it's never going to work out. You know what I'm saying? So you have to be willing to commit whatever it takes. For me, I mean, even this week, and I love what you said about sleep. It's like I went 3 hours a night for 3 straight nights, and then it's like, okay, time out. My body's telling me I need a little more sleep, so I doubled it up last night, slept 6. You know what I'm saying? And that's the kind of attitude that we have to have. Like, just sleep is a little overrated. We'll sleep. We'll have time to do that, and I understand that. Probably on Monday we'll talk about the value of rest because that's what always happens to me. But when we commit to something and I'm repeating myself. What's the next tip we had?
That's all right. It's good stuff though. Whatever you're repeating, it's good, man. And again, I am for rest. I am. I don't want anyone to misunderstand. I'm a believer in rest. I'm a believer in sleep. I'm a believer in having a day off. Okay? But what we're dealing with is startup. We're dealing with the fact that when you're in a startup situation, you don't have cash flow. So you've got to have this obsessive, crazy, sickening, focused work ethic to get to the place where you're generating cash. Unless you have that kind of work ethic and passion and you're passive about it. When it comes to money, you can never be passive. You've got to be aggressive when it comes to money. And this is why some people don't have that breakthrough, Mike, because they don't break through. They keep the same actions. And if you maintain a passive action about your business and your success or your sales, you're in deep trouble. Believe me, I know from experience. Let me pick one of the other tips that he said. I love this.
Hey, while you're...
Yeah? You go ahead.
I was reading some of the comments and appreciate everyone's comments. Britton just said she's not an entrepreneur, but she's a mom and a student, and so basically. I mean, you're working 16 hours a day, anyways, right? So it's definitely. And Tommy's mom is a realtor. Realtors are for the most part, most of them are very entrepreneurial in nature. A lot of them work, alone as private individuals, and she works when the work is there, right? So that creates a situation. And today, I mean, 20 years ago it was completely different, but today, man, you're always on and you're always working, and that's an advantage to a business owner. I mean, to me it's an advantage that I can be having coffee down at the coffee shop, and take 5 minutes to return a couple of emails. I don't have to be in my office, right? And sometimes that's a disadvantage because you're never unplugged, which is why, we talk sometimes about taking a Sabbath and things of that nature. But to my way of thinking, it's an advantage to the business owner because it allows you to stay connected, to execute, to take advantage of every opportunity you have to execute.
I think what Mike and I are sharing on Fuel for Success is like when we were talking to our baseball players last night in practice. We were talking about always giving 100% and doing things that great people do, right? And this is what we were teaching our kids. We were giving them some things that we know that major league players do. And I told them, I said, guys, what we're really teaching you is a certain mentality. So even when you come in, and like I love what Britton said, so you may not be a businessman or an entrepreneur, or you may never do a startup company, but man, if you're a mom, everybody's in business, right? Like if you live your life the way that you're supposed to, you're going to need to take these principles that we're sharing and apply them to your life, because at Fuel for Success, the one thing that we are driving home is a mentality about life, right? And about success. So you don't have to be in business or in entrepreneurship to glean from this show. What we want you to glean is the mentality, right? So, for example, I know dads that never play with their kids, okay? So what we're talking about work ethic here, talking about the dad getting off the couch and stopping watching TV, and even though he doesn't feel like it, even though he worked 8 hours, and going and playing with his kids, or going for a walk with his wife, or going, and playing catch with his son. It's all about keeping yourself active, right? And it's about going to the next level in whatever it is you do. And it's about achieving that place of excellence. Case in point, I walked into a company yesterday. 4 salespeople were standing around laughing and talking. I was shocked. I mean, I was literally shocked that they were just standing there. Another salesperson was just doing this, sitting in a chair. This is what I said to myself. Literally, I said this to myself on my way out. I said, if I worked here, my fellow employees would hate me because I would never talk to them during working hours. I wouldn't. In other words, even if they tried, I would be doing 2 things. I would be reading a book if there were no people coming in, I would be reading a book, or I'd be listening to some motivational stuff, or if my sales manager came up and said, you're not supposed to listen to that on the job, I'd pull it out and I'd say, sir, just relax, because I'm the guy that's going to make you more money than all the salesmen put together, because the stuff I'm listening to right now is not country music. Hear me? It's not ESPN radio. It's how to be a better salesperson, right? That's the kind of person I would be. Or if I wasn't reading a book about how to be a better salesperson or how to be successful, I would be calling every prospect I had and connecting with them. Hey, even if I called to ask about how's little Johnny's soccer game going, they would be hearing from me all the time. But the number one thing, my pet peeve, is salespeople that survive on commission that just sit around and they laugh and they talk. You walk into these companies and I'm just like, it's disgusting. It literally is disgusting, the amount of averageness that I see. The other day I saw a person at the airport that owned a shoe shine place. Okay? No joke. No joke here what I'm about to tell you, my friends. I'm not saying he owned it, but he was working there, and obviously he gets paid by tips, he gets paid by commissions, right? You know what he was doing? He was sitting there like this. What? Waiting for someone to walk by and slap him on the head and say, hey, I need my shoe shined, right? What he should have been was standing up straight, smiling at everybody that walked by, saying hello, complimenting people's, whatever. Hey, I love that shirt, man. Oh, hey, go Dallas Cowboys. That's how this is the thing. It's all about mentality and it's all about attitude. It's all about your passion and it's all about doing things that great people do. You'll never find. Can you imagine if Mark Cuban was a shoe shine person? Would he be sitting there like this? No. And that's the law of cause and effect. Take your top 10. You ready? This is my best advice. Take your top 10 people that you admire the most out of the most successful, okay? Study their lives. Study their mentality. Study their habits and duplicate it. Because if you do what the greats do, you're going to get what the greats got over an eventual period of time. You just are.
That's right. Hey, I love what Hugh said. Achievement seems to be connected with action. We're talking about acting. Without taking action, nothing happens. I love the analogy of the shoe shine thing, Matt, because I can totally see you. You should do a shoe shine thing for a couple of days.
I would own it.
We'll do
a
study on it.
And while they were I've been giving them books and papers and magazines and cups of coffee. And hey, chill, I got you in 10 minutes, man. Just relax. You know what I mean? I would have a line, man. They would be writing articles about me, man. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, maybe I should open a shoe shine shop.
What I don't understand is why people just tolerate that sort of boredom in their life. Why don't you have fun doing what you're doing? If you're going to spend
every spare minute, you should be reading or listening to something or talking to somebody. Never sit there. The only time I sit there is when I meditate. That's it. Other than that, I'm moving. I'm studying. I'm reading. I'm listening. I'm talking to somebody. You're never going to see me just sit there. Driving down the road, I don't just drive down the road. I barely even listen to music. I'm either listening to Success CD, returning a phone call, shooting a video. Don't hate me. I'll change. I'll get better. But, don't just sit there anymore in life. Some of you are just sitting there. There's the motto of the day. Don't just sit there anymore. Do something. Do something you got 30 minutes till let's say you get all your work done, right? And you don't leave till 5 and it's like 4:20. Don't just sit there. Read. Do one more thing. Help somebody else. Help out another employee. Because believe it or not, you have this kind of mentality, and greatness is in your future.
That's right. Be productive. Be a producer, right? Even when I'm using my phone, you know how many games I have on my phone? Take a guess. Matt, how many games are on my phone? What do you think?
I'm going to have to say 0.
Exactly 0. If it could be less than 0, it would. I've never played a game on my smartphone. This is a tool to me. It's work.
Yeah. I don't have one game either, and I mean not one. And guess who else doesn't have a game? My son, 12 years old. I feel so sorry for Caleb, guys. I'm sorry. Poor kid. Yeah. I'm going to feel too sorry for him when he's 18, 19, 20 years old and he's blowing it up in life. Don't let your kids play video games, my friends. You're killing them. That's child abuse. And if you're going to let them play, 1 game a week. That's it. The rest of the time you need to be out moving, making money, reading books, enjoying life, creating good habits. It's not Friday.
It's not Friday. Tomorrow's Friday.
It's not Friday, baby.
Good stuff, everybody.
Everybody says I'm so excited about Friday. I'm excited about any day that ends with AY, man. You know what I'm saying? Or what? Any day that ends with DAY. Yeah, I'm just excited about. I don't care. Friday to me, Friday, Monday, they're all the same. So I can't wait till Friday. Why? Why? Well, Mike, obviously we've gone over our. Hannah says my boss doesn't like me now. My son doesn't like you. I know. What's funny is video games. My son's friends are always like, "Hey, you want to play?" And it's like, "No, I don't play video games." And he really doesn't. I mean, I'm like strict about it. I don't let him. And if I do, it's like seriously like 1 a week, and that's it. 1. That's it. So, and you ready for this? Just like I say with Fuel for Success. It's my son. It's my son.
He's not an unhappy kid, so. Yeah.
No, he's not an unhappy kid. He's not deprived.
He has more fun than most kids do, so y'all don't feel bad for him. That's right. Make the most of your day. I mean, be productive. Be a producer. Find ways to be productive, whatever you're doing.
Thank you.
Good.
It's good stuff. I enjoyed it. Mike and I love hanging. Mike, these 30 minutes go by way too fast, man. Way too fast, my friend. But hey, the good news is we're back tomorrow. Good news is we're back next week. So we'll see y'all tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Mike and I will be going in on family and relationships. If you're comfortable, do not watch our show because we will wreck your world. We love you guys. FuelForSuccess.tv, iTunes, Fuel for Success. Get us on your iPod, YouTube, Fuel for Success. If you like these shows, you owe it to the world to share it. Give it out. Pass it along. Text it. Email it. Facebook it. Tweet it. We love you. God bless you, my friends.
Pay it forward.
Pay it forward.
See y'all tomorrow.